All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for listening to the show, watching on YouTube, however the hell you consume Talking Buffalo. I appreciate you guys more than you could possibly know. Big thank you to today's sponsor as well, Sunny Reds, 1841 Eber Road, about 5 minutes or so away from Highmark Stadium. Wing night Wednesday, chicken tender nights on Thursdays, karaoke every other Saturday, including this Saturday. I'll tell you what, too, karaoke pops at Sunny Reds. It's a great bar. Great vibes, great place. If you have not been to Sunny Reds, do yourself a favor, get up there, have a couple beers, get something to eat. It will become one of your favorite spots, just like it is mine. All right, here's the deal, folks. We're going to talk cornerbacks with the Buffalo Bills today. Not quarter, but cornerback. To me, probably the biggest hole on this team, if there is one. We're going to address a couple, because there's not a lot, veteran options to play alongside Christian Benford. And of course, we'll start to dive in some draft prospects, which is the more likely route. For that, though, I got to tell you folks something here. StreamYard, which is an app that myself and many Bills content creators that I personally know use to record both for the video and the audio side, this app absolutely fucking sucks. Let me throw that out there right off the bat. I'm recording this episode much, and I mean very much to my chagrin, at around 8:22 p.m. is when I'm starting now for a second time consecutively, because this app blows. However, there's not another one that does both audio and video, at least that I found yet, that I feel comfortable about. But that's going to have to change real soon, because again, this app sucks. I just recorded a 35-minute or so podcast. This one that I'm doing for a second time, I go to put it on my computer to edit it, process it, shine it up a little bit, and then get it out on YouTube, and then later on audio podcast form, and the fucking thing never recorded. It literally never recorded. It silenced my mic the entire time. And it wasn't until afterwards where I found out where the glitch is in their stupid software. So that's really annoying. But my dedication to you guys, unrivaled. Completely unrivaled. Am I the best speaker when it comes to Bills content? No. Am I the most articulate? No. Am I the most handsome? Maybe. But I know what I am is the most dedicated to all of you, because again, I am recording this for a second time. The audio could have been fine. I could have just said, fuck it, taken the SD card out of my mixer and just put it out as audio only and not had anything on the video side. But even if only a couple hundred people end up watching on the video side, it's time well worth spent for all of you. But StreamYard, you're the fucking worst, and I'm going to find a better alternative going forward, and really soon, because this shit right now is annoying. The good news is I pretty much have an idea of what I'm going to say before I say it, because the first run was like kind of a dress rehearsal. Quickly, I'm not going to really get into this today. Oh, and by the way, too, tomorrow's show, Friday's show, I'm going to have PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective with me. We're going to talk some Buffalo Bills, but we're also going to talk Buffalo Sabres and even get some Buffalo Bandit stuff in as well. PK and Phil over at Buffalo Sports Collective, they are absolutely elite at covering the Bandits. They don't get enough love and enough coverage around this town other than their very rabid fan base. So we'll spend a little bit of time at least talking about them tomorrow. One of the things that maybe we'll dive into a little more tomorrow that I'm just going to gloss over today are rule proposal changes that 3 teams made, totaling 4 different proposal changes for the owners' meetings that are coming up here at the end of the month, going into the beginning of April. Teams propose, and then usually if they align with the competition committee's proposals, they have a better chance of getting approved at said owners' meeting. But real quick, the 4 that are possibly going to be discussed, and maybe, who knows, even 1 or 2 of them get voted to change, is a tush push ban that was submitted by the Packers. This one I thought was very interesting. The Detroit Lions submitted that the wild card team will get home field advantage in the playoffs if it has the better record. Up to this point, if you're the divisional champ, even if you're 9-8 and you play a wild card team in the first round, like the Vikings last year, who were 14-3, you're going to get home field because you won the division. The Lions are proposing that changes. The Lions also proposed a rule change that there'll be no more automatic first downs for defensive holding or for defensive illegal contract or contact. I thought that was interesting. And then the last one submitted by Philly, both teams will get the ball in overtime no matter what. As things stand right now, only in the playoffs do both teams see the ball no matter what. If it's the regular season and you go to overtime and you lose the toss, the other team scores a touchdown, that's a wrap. Your quarterback does not get to see the football. So we'll see if anything comes of those. Maybe I'll get a couple takes from PK on the show tomorrow. I don't have any really strong opinions per se on any of them, but I do think that they do make for some interesting conversations. So we'll see where that goes, if anywhere. All right, Buffalo Bills, cornerback. This is the position where I think you look at this roster right now and it becomes glaringly obvious that the Bills need to add to the cornerback room. Probably defensive line as well now because they got two guys who are going to spend the first 6 weeks of the season as things stand suspended, plus Joey Bosa, who I'm sure is going to get ramped up very, very slowly. You know, that car is an old car. It's got to warm up. So defensive line is going to be a significant source of allocation, I believe, at the draft as well. But nothing more to me right now, I think, screams we need help than the cornerback position, which let's start because that's ironic because they have literally a shutdown, lockdown, true number one corner right now in Christian Benford. The interesting thing about Christian Benford right now, and it's not surprising to me whatsoever, no extension. There's been no extension done with Benford. They have extended several of their guys going into the last year of their contracts, including Bernard, Shakir, Rizzo, and of course, not his last year, but they already extended Josh Allen as well. Nothing for Benford yet. I've always thought that this was going to be the hardest one to get done because I think it's going to be, not counting Josh, of course, here, but besides from him, it's going to be for the most money. Like Greg Rizzo got $20 million per year in his extension over 4 years. At least that's what the window dressing shows you. I would bet just about anything that Christian Benford is going to surpass that and quite possibly by a lot. Like I could see him getting $25 million a year, 23 to 25 million a year, easily, with most of that guaranteed. Like if he signed a 4-year extension, he's flirting with 100 million. He's that good. He's that important. He's that young, and he plays a premium position. You add it all up, not to mention the cap going up, the timing of being a free agent, all that stuff, and Christian Benford is going to get paid. And I'm sure that's a long, arduous process for both parties. I did not expect this to get done quick. The Bills don't want to have to pay him $25 million a year. Christian Benford doesn't want to take a hometown discount. He ain't trying to take $19-20 million a year. And you can make a case like Spencer Brown signed a year early before the final year of his contract. I think he got 18-19 million. That feels like a steal right now for the Bills. If he would have played it out and became a free agent, he's probably getting 23-24 million a year. So you can argue that he cost himself $3, $4, maybe $5 million per year by signing a year early. Maybe Christian Benford don't want to do that. Not for less than what he feels his market worth is going to be. And Stingley signing for $30 million a year with Houston just this week on an extension, that ain't helping the Bills at all. You know, Christian Benford was looking very, very keenly at that shit. So 23 to 25 million, I would bet, is around what it's going to take. And it's funny because James Cook's the one right now generating all the buzz. But make no mistake about it, okay, folks? Christian Benford is the one that is the most important. The Bills got running backs right now, really good running backs behind James Cook. And I don't want to be a hypocrite. Just earlier this week, I said the Bills, it's crazy talk to even consider trading James Cook if you're the Bills for a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, something along those lines. He's too good. He's too important to that offense. And I said my motto was, if you can't come to an agreement, let him play this year out, let him leave, let him go get monster money somewhere else if he's going to get it, and you get a comp pick. That's the way I handle James Cook. But here's my thing. If there was an issue, and I don't think there's going to be, but let's just say there was, James Cook holds out for the summer. He pulls an Hassan Reddick. He don't want to play during the games either, just like Hassan with the Jets last year. He didn't show up. He didn't play the regular season, a lot of it. He came in at some point and he mailed it in. He didn't do shit. He was a complete non-factor. Kind of funny because he still got $14 million, 12 of it guaranteed for 1 year with Tampa Bay about fucking a minute into free agency. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. My point is, Cook holds out during the summer in a doomsday scenario. Maybe it even goes into the season where he misses games or he plays, but he ain't got that same fire in his belly that he clearly did last year. The Bills got running backs in that room in Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. And it's not ideal, but they got running backs in that room. I feel like that could withstand an absent James Cook or a less than 100% committed James Cook in a worst case scenario. And that offense, and more specifically, the running game, I feel like could still be fine, sustainable. That ain't happening with Christian Benford. I'm going to tell you that right now, folks. Christian Benford, because of his skill level, the talent that he has, the position he plays, and what's around him at the position, I would say Christian Benford is as crucial to the Buffalo Bills as anybody on this football team whose name is not Joshua Patrick Allen, in my opinion. Okay? One thing I will say is the Bills don't really ever use the franchise tag. Barely ever. But if they had to, they would on Christian Benford in a New York minute, I feel like. Without question. And it would cost them, based on estimates for next year, around $22 million. To me, it's a no-brainer. Again, they ain't letting him walk, especially given the position behind him. And I'm not counting Teron Johnson, by the way. Teron is also one of the best corners in the NFL. But he's a slot guy. He's the nickel corner. And he plays up so much in the box, in that Bills light box. He's that third linebacker, basically. For the purpose of this conversation today, I'm talking about boundary corner, so I don't even consider him in that group. But without Christian Benford, this unit is not good. I mean, it's really, really bad. Dane Jackson and Jamarcus Ingram are your 2 and 3 corners as we record this episode right now. So that's not good enough. Speaking of which, with the corners, the Rasul Douglas return always felt less an idea. And of course, to this point, it hasn't happened. And now it's starting to feel like maybe it's not going to happen. Look, he was really good when they traded for him in 2023 with Green Bay. I thought it was a smart move by Beane. I thought it played out well. But this past year, he just wasn't that good. And look, there's always more to the story. He could have been more banged up than we know. There could be lots of factors. Maybe some things they asked him to do differently. We really don't know that. But he was not the same Rasul Douglas in 2024 that we saw in the back end of 2023. And he's a year older too now. So his return feels less an idea. I'm sure he's sitting out there right now wanting X amount of dollars, and he's still a free agent because not only are the Bills clearly not paying him what he wants or his agent wants, but neither are 31 other teams. He's a pretty good football player to still be lurking around right now without a job as we record this. I'm not sure if they're going to come to an agreement. Based on the other veteran options, I kind of wish they would, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But my point is, him returning, even since the season ended, never really felt like ideal. And I'll tell you this, Dane Jackson, depending on what your role for him is going to be, that feels even less ideal than the thought of Rasul Douglas being back. I like Dane Jackson just fine. If he's going to be what I hope Damar Hamlin is going to be. Like, I got no issue, especially after pondering it some. I'm fine with Damar Hamlin being back with the Buffalo Bills. As long as Damar Hamlin is not starting for the Buffalo Bills at free safety. If he's there for depth, veteran depth, the guy who's gotten it done before, who knows what he's doing, I'm down with that. That's how I feel about Dane Jackson right now. Dane Jackson is a better CB3 than Kaiir Elam was. So if that's going to be the role for Dane Jackson, I'm down with that. But if Dane Jackson is going to be 2024 Rasul Douglas, I don't know that I'm cool with that because I don't think Dane Jackson is starting caliber. He's the floor, and I know the floor can be a lot lower. You can do a lot worse than Dane Jackson as your floor, but there's no real ceiling there, and that I want to do better than that floor. So as a starter, he's even less an idea. Logic says it's going to be the draft. And I'll tell you real quick, before we get to a break here, I went through the Bills draft recent history, and I've done that quite a bit recently, but I've been looking for different things. Like I've been looking in recent years, paying attention to how Brandon Beane's done drafting in the first 2 rounds. We'll even say 3 rounds. And I feel like it's been a mixed bag. A little more good than bad, but kind of a mixed bag. And we've talked about wide receiver before, and it's felt like Brandon Beane has kind of neglected the wide receiver position, especially early in the draft, which is true. But then I looked because this kind of, sent me scurrying a little bit, doing a little bit of research here on our old GM Brandon Beane. Since 2018, when Brandon Beane has taken over, the Buffalo Bills have taken just 2 corners within the first 4 rounds of the draft. Just 2 since 2018. One of them, a gold mine. The other one, an absolute bust, unfortunately. Taron Johnson, a 4th-round pick in 2018, struck gold. He's one of the best slot corners in all of football, a leader on this team, one of the best players on this team, and one of the best slot corners in the entire league. Gold mine. Kaiir Elam, the only other one, a 1st-round pick in 2022. Unfortunately, great guy, hard worker, just didn't work out here. He's a bust. Let's say what it is. He was a bust for the Buffalo Bills. That's it, folks. 2 corners in the last, 6 years in the first 4 rounds. That to me is blowing my mind right now. Now, in part, maybe it wasn't such a big priority because you had Trey White for a lot of years. And, Christian Benford's been good for the last couple. But that's still surprising. The Bills, just generally speaking, in all rounds, haven't really taken a lot of corners. 2018, Sharon Neal in the 5th. 2019, Jaquan Johnson in the 6th. 2020, Dane Jackson in the 7th. 2021, Rashad Wildgoose in the 6th. 2022, the other gold mine there, Christian Benford. Maybe he goes down as one of the best late-round picks, certainly in Buffalo Bills history by the time it's all said and done. But anyway, him in 2022. 2023, you got Alex Austin in the 7th. Bills let him go pretty early, and he's done some good things now with the Patriots. And then this past year, you got Daquan Hardy in the 6th round. That's it. Those are all the corners, all of them, that Brandon Beane has taken since becoming GM here in 2018. And part of it, like I said, they've went like Trey White since 2017, and he finished 2nd in the NFL in Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2017. He was good right off the bat. They've kind of went with pedestrian, cheaper, so-so options as CB2 alongside him. EJ Gaines in 2017, and then he left. And then it was Levi Wallace from 2018 all the way to 2021. Dane Jackson stepped in 2022. Kaiir Elam, because Trey White got hurt. And then 2023, after Trey went down, they traded for Rasul alongside Benford, which sucked. Because again, 2023, you got an emerging young cheap guy in Benford, which your established guy was looking really good, Trey White, and he gets hurt. But my point is the Bills haven't really sunk in a lot of financial resource or draft resource into this position other than, like I said, the couple picks that they've had in the first 4 rounds over the last 6 years. Anyway, take a real quick break, come back on the other side. I'm going to go through 2 veterans, not counting Rasul Douglas, that are still out there that could be a fit. One that I really thought would be a great fit, but literally a few hours before we started recording this shit, he signed somewhere else. And then we'll get into a handful of potential rookie options in round 1s or maybe round 2 of the draft. So be right back, folks. All right, I am back recording the same exact episode, pretty much the same exact one for a second time now because StreamYard sucks, but you guys don't suck. And I wanted to make sure this would be available on the video side because a lot of you like to watch as well as listen. So I'm trying to serve everybody out there as best as I possibly can. All right, veterans here who I said, aside from Rasul Douglas, because I still do think ultimately he could be an option. It could be a wait and see. Brandon Beane could be saying, hey, let's see what we got in the draft or let's see what other veteran possibilities are out there. We'll circle back if you're still available. So I'm not counting Rasul, although I do think a return still is at least on the table, although probably not likely unless both sides budge on what they're willing to pay or to take. Again, I had three, but literally just a couple hours ago, Akello Witherspoon re-signed with the Rams on a one-year deal. I thought he would have been freaking great. I was like, shit, that sucks. In fact, I might have tweeted about it earlier in the day. Maybe I'm the jinx there because he was one of my clear-cut, like, number one choices for to add to this team. Anyway, a guy a lot of people talk about is Asante Samuel Jr. I don't know. I haven't heard anything credible about him being really truly linked to the Buffalo Bills. I think a lot of this is fan driven, maybe content creator driven, media driven, social media driven, whatever you want to call it. I can see why. I mean, he's 25 years old. And he certainly seems to fit this LA pipeline that the Bills seem to have going on this offseason. In terms of the pros, he's just 25 years old, so he's still young. He's very athletic. He's got 6 interceptions. He had 27 pass breakups from 2021 to 2023. And of course, he's got a great bloodline, obviously. I mean, his dad was an absolute stud in the NFL, a true and true boundary guy. That's what Samuel is. Which, again, by the way, all these corners we're talking about today, veterans, draft prospects, primarily they're boundary guys. You're set at nickel. You got Tehran. Cam Lewis is perfectly fine to be the backup there as well. So we're talking about the outside corners today. So there are definitely pros to Asante Samuel Jr. In terms of the cons, look, he's a shitty tackler. Let's just call it what it is. He's a terrible, terrible tackler. And I know a lot of people like to shit on PFF for their grades. And a lot of that, I understand why. People who are a lot smarter than me have showed me how that's more about marketing to the casuals as much as anything else. I get all that. I do. I promise you. I do. But they do have a lot of advanced stats and metric stuff that, is not bullshit. And he has a 16.5 missed tackle rate. That's not good. That's not good. He is not a physical corner. Kind of like Deion Sanders, but you ain't Deion Sanders in coverage, my guy. So you got that. He's a shitty tackler. Big injury last year. It's a concern. Shoulder injury. Stinger, I think he said he was playing through it. That's a concern. He only played 4 games last year. And I'm not sure you want to commit to even a one-year deal, let alone a multi-year guy for somebody who's got injury concerns, especially on a unit that's relatively thin. Not relatively, it is thin right now with the Buffalo Bills. And these guys, the corners for the Bills, have been getting banged up a lot over these past few years. So I don't love pretty much anything about them. Like I said, I loved the concept, given where we're at in the process of Akello Witherspoon, but he's gone. So can't talk about him today. And then the other guy, the other veteran, is somebody who Bills fans are very familiar with, Stephon Gilmore. 34 years old, most recently with the Vikings. In terms of the pros, he is a pros pro. Very experienced, intelligent player. He was a very good to great player for a very long time in this league. He knows the city. He knows what football means to Buffalo. If that matters for anything, he knows what it means to the city, to the culture. He's certainly not what he once was, but again, he's still an intelligent player, a heady player, and he's plenty physical. So there's pros to his game. The cons, straight up, 34 years old, man. He is a shell of what he was. I read a report in The Athletic that last year in Minnesota, week 17, they played Green Bay. He man coverage all game long against, I think it was the Packers. And it was noted by reporters, like after the game, he was like literally completely spent in the locker room afterwards. Like I said, he's not what he was. He's not really a man cover guy anymore either. And it feels like the Bills are kind of trending towards more of that in the draft. So if you're looking at veteran free agent options right now, there's not a lot. Asante Samuel, Stephon Gilmore with Witherspoon gone, Rasul Douglas, obviously, a name to monitor. There's really not anything else in terms of any veteran who could be, who even has a ceiling to be better than what Dane Jackson is right now. So anyone beyond them, if it's free agency, you might as well just stick with Dane. Now, something I haven't discussed and won't today, because who the hell knows how that would play out. Trades are always on the table. I mean, the Bills got 10 picks. So what's to say they don't put one out there, package a couple, whatever, go get a corner, on a good contract on a bad team that's going nowhere. So a trade could happen. It could happen out of nowhere too. So that's, of course, on the table. But if you're talking veterans, there's just not a lot out there, which is probably going to lead you ultimately to this year's draft. I want to tell you all about a huge event coming up, world's largest 80s party, Saturday night, April 5th at Stolat on Transit Road in Williamsville. Everyone loves the 80s and a great 80s party, and this will definitely be the one you don't want to miss. Buffalo Joe and Andreessen and Channel 4 news anchor Kelsey Anderson are your hosts for the evening. DJ Anthony from Kiss 98.5 will be in the house, and Nerds Gone Wild takes the stage at 8:30 p.m. There'll be a costume contest. Costumes are not mandatory, but highly encouraged. There'll be tons of cool backdrops for photos and also free parking outside, by the way. The event starts at 7:30 p.m. and $15 get you in the door with a general admission ticket. There's limited VIP tickets left for $75, and those include 3 hours of premium open bar, food all night, your own private area, and admission to the event 30 minutes earlier at 7 p.m. And the best thing about all this is that this 80s Bash is raising money for two amazing charities, for pediatric cancer, for the Shine Gold campaign, and also raising money for Claudia's Club, which helps those with disabilities in Western New York. You can get tickets at Hope Rises Network on Facebook or Instagram, or go to hoperisesnews.com. I can't wait to be there for this event. Hope to see you all there as well. In terms of corners with the draft, and let me say this too before we even start to dive in, kind of turning the page for the most part, like I said, with free agency. Certainly, if the Bills do anything in free agency, big or small, we'll be reacting to it on the show. But for the most part, I kind of feel like what you got is what you're going to get with free agency. And now it's starting to become, over the next month or so, a hell of a lot more about the draft. And we'll be having a ton of draft coverage on Talking Buffalo going forward. 5 weekly mock drafts dropping every Thursday starting next week. I'll have plenty of interviews with people who are much more well-versed with a lot of these prospects than I'll ever be as I start to dive in and try to learn and study as much about them as humanly possible. Just want to throw that out there. But for today, like I said, with the corners being probably the more likely avenue to getting your CB2, if not for this year, certainly going forward into the future. Let's start by running off 3, all right? Because Travis Hunter is going to be gone before Brandon Beane gets up to get his second cup of coffee once the draft starts. He's going to be gone the first 4 to 5 picks. 2 other guys, Barron and who's the other guy? Will Johnson. They're going to be gone too. Like, short of trading up into the top half of the first round, you ain't getting either of those guys. And I'm not saying the Bills positively won't do that, but short of doing that, you're not getting them. So Barron, Johnson, and of course, Hunter, long, long gone. I feel like right now, there's 3 guys as things stand that could be first round targets and like a solid handful of others that could be really nice gets into the second round. And again, we'll learn a lot more about these guys and several others over the next handful of weeks between the mock drafts with guests on air and interviews with people who are really locked in to just the draft as a whole and defensive players and receivers too, more specifically. But for now, 3 guys. Trey Amos has become a very popular name to talk about. He's from Ole Miss, 23 years old. He's like 6'1", $190, ran a 4.43 at the combine. I know a big question mark about him was his speed. He kind of silenced that. PFF had him ranked pretty high. And interesting, Dave Ruger from The Athletic didn't. He only had him like 93rd on his big board, like 10th among corners. I'm not going to get in what they all wrote today. We'll kind of save those for more specific episodes. I will note Daniel Jeremiah, of course, from NFL.com. He had him in his most recent mock draft going to the Rams with the 26th overall pick. And he wrote that his only question at that time was about his speed, and that, that was answered at the combine. So Amos is certainly one. Another one is Maxwell Hairston. I believe Joe Biscaglia might have been on him quite a while ago in his Bills offseason mock. He had him going to the Bills. But anyway, he's out of Kentucky. He's like 6'1", about a $186, I think I read on him. He ran a 4.28 at the combine, fastest of anyone across any position at the combine. I kind of feel like he's become like a first round lock for the Bills. But Daniel Jeremiah has him going to Green Bay, 23rd overall. In his latest mock, he's got him 32nd on his big board, and says he offers an enticing blend of movement skills and production. And then the other guy today that we'll mention as a first round guy, Azare Thomas from FSU. He's young. He's only turning 21 this season. 6'2", $198, slender dude. Again, a guy who could go late first round, definitely early in the second. The Athletic says about him, Thomas isn't the fastest corner in the draft class, but he's a good-sized athlete who recovers well from missteps and rarely gets beat over the top. His strengths are his length and physicality to disrupt the timing of routes and be a factor at the catch point. That said, you would like to see him come away with more interceptions. Boy, I'll tell you something. You know what it reminds me of a lot? Rasul Douglas. Reminds me a lot of Rasul, what I'm reading about him. Daniel Jeremiah has him going to Washington with the 29th overall pick. And he says Thomas is a tall, long, and fluid corner. In press coverage, he has the size and physicality to disrupt at the line of scrimmage. Look, those are three guys right there. And for reference, let's just say for fun, okay, the Bills pick 30th. Brandon Beane says, I really don't want to trade up from 30. I feel good about this spot. Maybe we'll move up, with our other picks at other parts of the draft, but we're not going to move up from 30. We're going to see how the board plays out. If that were to be the case, and again, just purely for fun, let's say Daniel Jeremiah nails all of his picks. All three guys are gone. You got Thomas going 29th to Washington. You got Harrison going 23rd to the Packers. And then you had Amos, who was going in the first round. I can't remember. I think he had him going 26th. So, 26 to the Rams. So 23, 26, and 29, all three of those dudes are gone. Brandon Beane could get left at the altar, which shows you that there's a good chance that no less, if you count Hunter as a corner or not a receiver, let's count him as a corner today. There's a great chance that 6 corners are going in the first round of the draft. And there's always somebody who goes at least a half round more than you see in all the mock 2 or 3 round mock drafts. They always go much higher. You're talking 6 to 7 corners could be going in the first round. And if you're Brandon Beane and you really are targeting a corner and you really like one, do you want the 6th or 7th best corner? Do you want the last corner who you have graded around that area? That feels very 2022 Kaiir Elam-ish to me. So as I think about it, going through this exercise, which is why I love mock drafts. I love mock drafts because they're a thought exercise. They're not they're not an indicator of how things are going to play out. They're a thought exercise. And if things were to play out remotely accurate, the Bills at 30 are probably going to get maybe the last first roundish corner on their board. It seems like moving up from 30 to like the mid-20s to go get a corner early on anyway, certainly feels like the play. Now, there's a couple other guys. We're not really going to talk about them today. We'll talk about them again more in future weeks, 4 to be exact, who are like second-round candidates who could possibly, again, creep and linger around the end of that first. Darian Porter from Iowa State. Denzel Burke from Ohio State, Morrison from Notre Dame. I love that kid. I watched him play plenty. And then Siobhan Rovell from East Carolina. He's going to be one of the more polarizing guys in this draft because he's coming off a torn ACL. And he would have been probably a first round lock were it not for the ACL. And he still may be a first rounder even with the ACL. So fascinating stuff at corner. To wrap this all up, I kind of feel like unless you're good with Dane Jackson being your starter right now, because there's not really a veteran option out there. If you want to go, maybe if you go get Samuel, then I think he's your surefire starter. Dane Jackson's your CB3. Now maybe you can go take a more of a developmental corner in rounds, 3, 4, 5, something like that, and try to work on developing a corner. But assuming you don't go that route and Dane Jackson going into the draft is your guy alongside Benford, it feels to me like corner is going to be a necessity early. And all these guys we just talked about today certainly will be candidates. Anyway, all right, that's going to do it for today's show. Again, I'll be back tomorrow. PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective will join me. Bills talk, Sabres talk, Bandits talk, a hell of a lot more coming up with PK tomorrow.